Morning. Well, as I hope you can see, the cutting went very well yesterday. Cut through the gunnels, which was the most resistance, took the longest to cut, and then actually cutting through the ply was quite quick. Through some parts of the floor section, there was a bit of epoxy sealing the gap between the bulkheads and the floor, so that took a little bit of extra effort, but it all went pretty well. So as you can see, the forward section nests quite nicely in the aft section, even with the tanks in place. So but the tanks are only currently taped into position, dry fitted. I didn't want to glass them in yet until we were sure that the forward section would actually nest properly, because there'd be nothing worse than getting those glassed in and then finding it doesn't fit by 1/4 of an inch. So I wanted to do the test first before glassing those in. So let me show you. So this is looking aft. These are the nesting bulkheads here, with the holes where the bolts join them together. And you can see the forward section fits really well. The gunnels are resting on the gunnels. Not quite sure what's happening on the floor side, but there's a nice gap here between the bow section of the forward section and the tanks in the aft section. So perhaps some foam or some padding might go in there. That can even slide forward. Potentially that should slide forward, I suppose, and sit here. Yeah, if that sits there, we can put some padding here, some padding against the sides of here, and that'll sit, and then probably something underneath as well. So the plan today is to round off these corners here, and then fill any remaining gaps with thickened epoxy, anywhere there are any gaps, anywhere around the side. So it's not too bad actually. So this is the bit that I was thought might have some gaps in it, but that's filled up quite well. What I did was I put some cardboard over it. There we are, that's the cardboard. The cardboard has saved a lot of that work. So the plan today is to round these off and get these gaps filled up, and then leave that overnight, and then potentially tomorrow get the tape, or perhaps even fiberglass over the whole panel, because this panel is effectively what's supporting the weight of the two sections when they bolt it together. There's going to be quite a strong cantilever force on here. But this top one does feel very solid at the top. It's just here, but then there's nothing pulling on there. It's just going to be down here. It's just these top sections, and they're quite well reinforced here. So I think make sure it's reinforced strongly there and all the way around the edge. Yeah, it doesn't really need it, I don't think, here, but. And I've got something else to show you with regards to what I'm going to do about the sail and the rigs, but I'll show you that later on. This morning I want to get on with sanding this before it gets too hot, because I need to wear my protective suit, and once the temperature gets higher up around lunchtime and in the afternoon, it's going to be too hot to wear that. So I need to do that this morning. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'll show you my latest purchase. Okay, and into time-lapse mode. Yes, that's sanding in one of those dust-proof suits is warm work. The temperature next door in the kitchen is showing us 30 degrees, so it's pretty warm today. So I need to stop and have some liquids. Feeling quite thirsty. But what I have done, I'll show you quickly, is smoothed off the edges so it can take some tape, because these seams need taping up. First of all, though, I need to fill in these voids, which are not very deep, but you know, it's where the epoxy didn't get squeezed all the way through. So that's gone through quite well. That's quite good there, a little bit of a gap. And then here, I think here, this particular bulkhead wasn't quite stuck to the spaces, so it's actually moved by about 1 mil. So there's a bit of an overlap there of about 1 mil. And the temptation was just to sand this down flat, I think that would have been a mistake, because then the boat wouldn't have been making contact in the right places. And that's probably why that bolt was difficult to fasten, because it was not only was it on 6 sheets of glass tape, it was also had this extra millimetre missing as well from where the bulkhead had just, maybe slightly turned away from the other one. So what I want to do is perhaps just put a layer of fiberglass in here before I do anything else, or maybe 2, to try and make up that, pad that out to the right depth, right shape, and then I can glass over it as if it was flush. So I think that's the plan, is to make that flush again. But before I do that, I just want to join the 2 halves back together, perhaps with a spacer there, and just see if that makes sense. Look at the fair of the hull, make sure it is actually straight before I go ahead, because once I put that on, it's going to be impossible to take off again. So that's the next stage, is put the 2 halves together and check to see whether that butt joint is actually where it should be. Hi. Okay, so the surprise I was going to show you is that I've bought a laser dinghy. So here she is. I've just spent the last 20 minutes rigging her up to make sure I know how everything fits together. And my plan is to use the rigging, the mast, the sail, the boom, and all the rigging, and all the blocks and cleats and everything on the one I'm building, rather than having to buy them all from scratch. So it's probably more cost effective, but also it's a lot less hassle and work, because with the plans that I have, I've got to find someone to make a sail, give them the plans, so it's going to be custom built, and it's a special spindrift design with a special logo. And if I was going to race it in the Spindrift series, then that's what I would need to do, because it wouldn't be a Spindrift dinghy if I didn't do that. But this isn't going to be a racing dinghy, it's going to be a workhorse for a tender for a yacht. So we don't need all of that particular attention to detail, all of the specific sail sizes and trim and everything. So I thought, why go to all of that hassle, spend hundreds if not £1,000 on the rig, when for what I paid for this is £380. So for £380 I've got everything I need to get the dinghy sailing. It's just a question of pulling it off this boat and putting it on the one I'm building. So let me show you what we have. So there she is. She's a regular laser from 1985. She's got, I think it's a standard size sail, although what it actually says on the front here is 3.8, so I'm not sure if that refers to the size, which is probably a bit small, because a 4.7 is the smallest. I think it then goes up to 5 something, and then 6 maybe for a full size. But so what we've got here is we've got the mast base, we've got the mast top, we've got this laser sail, and we've got the boom, and then of course all the rigging. So we've got the main sheet here, it goes through a jamming cleat, a block in the centre, and then there's a block on the boom, and a block at the back, and it goes down to a final block which runs across the back of the transom on a traveller like this. And obviously the boom and the outhaul is on a bungee cord, which has also got another line to tighten that in, so you can actually pull out the outhaul if you want to, or adjust it by the shock cord. And the downhaul, I haven't rigged this exactly properly, so I need to reline that, so one line either side of the boom, with the block I think just underneath, so there's 2 lines one either side. And then this is for the dagger board, so that will go through the dagger board to keep the dagger board from being lost overboard and sinking. So there we are. Just need to identify what this number means. 3.8. Laser new numbers 3.8. So the plan is not to do anything with the actual hull, but to take off all of these cleats. They just screw in, and rig this pretty much exactly as it's rigged on here, but on the other boat. And all of the bits and pieces will just be removed and then refitted on the new boat when she's done. And so for £380, sailing rig is now sorted. So I'm feeling quite happy about that. Anyway, so that's the new addition, and yeah, everything's there. And so the plan will be now then to cut the right size hole in the mast collar and the mast base to take that mast. So I just need to measure that mast and cut a hole to that dimension in the boat, and she'll then take this rig as and when she's ready to hit the water. So all good so far. Okay, so that's the end of another video. Remember, if you'd like to receive notifications when new videos are posted, then subscribe by clicking on the link down below. And if you've enjoyed watching the video, just please leave a like. Cheers.